3 weeks after the election, the fight is not over. Tonight, San Diegans took to the streets demanding action on causes from criminal justice reform and police brutality to immigration and the environment. Good evening, and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Barbara Lee Edwards.
I'm Carlo Cicchetto. The National Day of Action comes on the same day as a so-called Day of Disruption. Workers fighting for 15, a push to raise the minimum wage, joined protesters from other causes in tonight's rally and march.
CBS News 8's Richard Allen is live at City College with how everyone came together for tonight's event. Richard?
Well, Carlo and Barbara Lee, this protest tonight began at the federal courthouse, ending here at City College, energized by those earlier demonstrations throughout San Diego and throughout the nation today for that $15 hourly wage for all workers. But tonight's protest encompassed much more than just that one issue. Hundreds take to the streets of downtown San Diego Tuesday night. No justice, no peace. Representing a number of causes, from immigration to the environment to fair wages. With one unified call to action.
I think that having a voice and being heard is a lot better than keeping silent.
SDSU student Alicia Salinas chose to march to demand immigration reform in the face of an uncertain future.
I'm worried for my family that we're going to be ripped apart.
Others here to protest the Dakota pipeline and the irreparable environmental damage they say it will cause.
And I want to keep the water clean and the pipeline in the ground.
And these guys are just coming in, desecrating their sacred sites, going over their ancestors and their families' bones, and it's not right.
One of the most vocal contingents of Tuesday's Justice Can't Wait rally.
We are not going away. We are not backing down.
The national call for workers' rights, including an immediate wage raise to $15 an hour.
Workers deserve $15 an hour right now.
Just as passionate, the call for racial justice, including the Black Lives Matter movement. As the family of Alfred Alongo, the unarmed black man killed by El Cajon police in September, is now calling on the U.S. Attorney General to open an investigation into their loved one's death.
We need federal light on this, and as this administration comes in, we're going to press Donald Trump and the Civil Rights Division of the Attorney General's office. We will not tolerate police killings in this country.
Now, tonight's rally also included a number of housing rights and environmental groups, as well as members of the LGBT community. San Diego police report that no arrests were made. Barbara Lee.
Le saluda Carlos Sánchez. Cientos recorrieron las calles de San Diego protestando diversas causas sobre justicia social y medio ambiente. Para muchos preocupa el que la nueva administración federal dé pasos atrás en cuanto a luchas y acuerdos que llevan años intentando realizar. Pasamos con Marco Serrano, quien nos tiene más desde el centro de San Diego. Marco, adelante, buenas noches.
¿Qué tal? Buenas noches. Diversos grupos son los que se reunieron durante este día de actividades, culminando en esta marcha por las calles de San Diego. El eslogan: la justicia no puede esperar. La escena, la cual se vuelve cada vez más común, se repite. Se trata de cientos armados con pancartas y su voz, tomando de nuevo las calles para expresar sus preocupaciones e intentar intervenir por causas importantes para ellos. El esfuerzo se dio en diversas ciudades del país. La convocatoria general realizada por grupos a favor de un incremento al salario mínimo. California en el 2022 alcanzará los $15 la hora, pero hay quienes dicen necesitan el aumento ya.
Entonces, con ese mínimo que nos dan realmente no alcanza. Entonces necesitamos hacer unión, equipo, fuerza para que podamos obtener un poquito más.
Incluso las actividades iniciaron desde la mañana de este martes con protestas frente a restaurantes de comida rápida, llegando hasta dentro del aeropuerto de San Diego, donde se pelea por un mejor sueldo para cajeros y maleteros.
La verdad, no recuerdo, pero siempre los aumentos han sido de 25 centavos, 20 centavos, 15 centavos.
Mientras, a la marcha por el centro de San Diego se unieron diversos grupos, una mayoría preocupados por cuestiones del medio ambiente, tal como la construcción de líneas transnacionales de petróleo en tierras de tribus nativas.
Estamos aquí, yo he ido a apoyar, yo y mi mamá fuimos para apoyarles, mantener su soberanía sobre su tierra.
Para otros, la cantidad de personas que han muerto a manos de agentes de la policía los motivó a participar.
We focus on the families because we have about 734 people killed.
Más de 730 civiles han muerto en el condado de San Diego desde hace varias décadas por agentes del orden, señaló esta activista. Son 700 familias que hasta ahora no han recibido justicia en sus casos, agregó. Por su parte, la calidad del aire y un mejor sistema de transporte público hizo que más se unieran.
Si tenemos mejor transporte público, tenemos menos carro, no dependemos del carro, entonces mejora la calidad del aire que está causando tantas enfermedades en nuestras comunidades.
La marcha finalizó frente al Colegio Comunitario City, donde se contemplaba que diversos líderes religiosos fueran arrestados por desobediencia civil. Sin embargo, la policía decidió que no había razón necesaria para detener a nadie y la idea se abandonó. El evento culminó sin mayor percance. Y conforme pase el tiempo y se definan mejor las políticas de la nueva administración, activistas por toda la nación continuarán pendientes para seguir precisamente manifestándose y presionando los puntos a favor de su lucha. Es lo que tenemos desde el centro de San Diego. De regreso al estudio.
Hundreds of people rallied in San Diego today as part of a national day of protest for workers' rights. They want the federal minimum wage to go up to $15 an hour. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has been following some of the protesters as they march through downtown San Diego. Andrew?
Hi, Ebony. Well, right now we're at the intersection of Park Boulevard and Broadway. As you can see, there are hundreds of people here marching. This march was originally part of the Fight for 15 movement, which started as a movement run by fast food workers in New York State fighting for a $15 minimum wage. This march, however, is about far more than just a minimum wage. In California, we already have a minimum wage law that's going to be moving up toward $15 an hour by 2022. But a lot of the signs here are touching on issues of economic justice, unions' rights, workers' rights, environmental justice. We've heard talk about the Dakota Access Pipeline. Also, social justice issues. We've heard Black Lives Matter. We've heard the name mentioned of Alfred Alongo. That's the unarmed black man who was shot and killed by an El Cajon police officer. This march tonight is about far more than just minimum wage. It's about building a whole movement and sustaining that movement under President Donald Trump. I think a lot of people here are really worried about the next 2 and 4 years under a Republican Congress and a Republican president. They see a lot of these issues of social, economic, and environmental justice as going to be very difficult to fight for, and they're getting ready for that fight under President Donald Trump. Reporting from downtown San Diego, Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Thanks, Andrew. There have been dozens of arrests at similar protests around the country. 40 people, in fact, were arrested in Los Angeles when they blocked a downtown intersection.
Right now, a crowd is gathering downtown, protesting a number of issues, including the Dakota Access Pipeline. Many in North Dakota are demonstrating against the oil pipeline that may threaten, they say, drinking water and cultural sites on an Indian reservation. People are also protesting for higher minimum wage. We told you about that just a while ago in this newscast, part of a nationwide movement going on today.
Also, many San Diegans were part of that movement to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Workers and the supporters demonstrated at a McDonald's in Barrio Logan today and later at Lindbergh Field. They're calling for a $15 an hour minimum wage because they say it's not enough money for the high cost to live in San Diego. Currently, the minimum wage in our city is $10.50, but it will go up by $1 in January.
Considering the fact that I do have things such as rent and bills, yeah, you know, $10.50 would be okay if I didn't have those. Unfortunately, I do.
The disparity between what the CEO gets and what the workers get is phenomenal.
McDonald's takes seriously our role in helping strengthen communities as we and our franchisees separately employ hundreds of thousands of people, providing many with their very first job. Over 20 cities participated in the protest today.
What started as a protest over the minimum wage is growing. Now several groups downtown airing their grievances. 10 News reporter Emily Thode is with them live. Emily, who are these groups that are down there?
So we have basically 5 different groups. I want to tell you and set the stage. We are right now standing in the middle of the street. We're on the intersection of 5th and Market right now. Police have stopped stop traffic. So this started out as a minimum wage protest, but the union got several other groups together. So we have climate justice, we have people against the pipeline, we have clean water people, we have racial justice people, we have many groups who have come here together to make a louder voice, so to speak, for, they say they're all on the same team. So this is growing, and we're meandering through San Diego right now. We'll walk a few blocks and then we'll stop, and then they'll change the chant. So it might be one for workers' rights to increase minimum wage, and then we'll go a few blocks, and then they might change it to Black Lives Matter. So they're trying to hit each different topic as they move on down through the streets of San Diego, and it looks like we're getting ready to move on. Once again, we're going to have a complete wrap of this on 10 News at 7 and on 10 News at 11. I'm live in downtown San Diego. Emily Thode, back to you.
Emily, thank you. Quite a scene there. And now, before going down, workers disrupted travelers at Lindbergh Field.
You cannot enter the terminal. Please step out. You cannot enter the
At one point, the protesters refused the orders of Harbor Police. They actually went inside the terminal. Hundreds marched through the baggage claim area in Terminal 1 for just a few minutes. Dozens of fast food workers also stormed into a McDonald's in Barrio Logan this morning.
San Diegans are among the workers coast to coast fighting for 15 to raise the minimum wage. Several protests were held during the so-called Day of Disruption as demonstrators made it clear that they are not backing down on this issue. CBS News 8's Kelly Hessedal is live with our first look at a march downtown tonight. Kelly?
Yeah, and Barbara Lee, protesters left the federal building downtown and marched through the downtown area. Their final destination, this McDonald's here near 11th and Park behind me. Now they are fighting for higher wages, but tonight they're also rallying for other causes. Outside the federal building, protesters carried signs highlighting different causes: climate action, Black Lives Matter, and Fight for 15. It's the third rally of the day and what they call a day of disruption. This afternoon, airport workers and taxi drivers marched inside and outside Lindbergh Field.
I'm now making the top wage that they pay, and I'm still below poverty. There's more than enough revenue going through here for us to be making more than we are.
Travelers looked on. This man skeptical.
You should be paid for what you're worth, and I don't know what they're doing to make that value. So,
hey, McDonald's, you can't hide. We can see your greedy side.
This morning, fast food workers rallied in Barrio Logan outside of McDonald's.
People who work for a living should be able to earn enough to live in the city that they work in.
So far, the demonstrations have been peaceful. Reverend Beth Johnson says they stand united.
These workers are willing to risk arrest. I'm willing to risk arrest with them because we know the importance of standing together.
And at last check, those protesters were in the gas lamp area. Again, their final destination, 11th and Park, here at this McDonald's behind me. My colleague Richard Allen will have that part of the story all new at 11 p.m. Carlo?
The fight for 15 continues tonight with a nationwide effort to raise the minimum wage in the U.S.
Rallies are being held in most major cities. In Boston, airport workers held signs calling for wage increases, while 26 people in New York were arrested for blocking traffic during their demonstration. Fast food and O'Hare Airport workers also walked off the job today in Chicago.
And here in San Diego, it's been a similar sight.
Justice! You can see that a large protest growing this evening in downtown San Diego. More than 500 people with several causes came together, marching through downtown streets. Signs saying "Keep it in the ground" and "Water is life" were carried by people in solidarity with protests going on in North Dakota against that proposed oil pipeline. Others were protesting the killing of Alfredo Longo by El Cajon police back in September, and there were those in support of raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Receiving minimum wage, which is okay if you don't have rent, if you don't have bills, if you don't have basic necessities, I guess, in order to sustain a comfortable lifestyle.
So this crowd paused at the intersection of Broadway and Park downtown for about 15 minutes, bringing car, bus, and trolley traffic to a halt. They did end at 11th and Park at about 7:30 tonight.
Earlier today, fast food employees, along with workers in several other fields and even state leaders, are standing together fighting for the minimum wage. Carlos Correa has more.
There are more police officers at the San Diego International Airport than usual. as protesters chant for change.
Like everybody else, we have to live. Right now, we can't do that.
Elton Pendleton has worked at the airport for close to 4 years. He says he is barely making ends meet because of his low salary.
A lot of us are still on assistance from the state, and that's deplorable. We need to be brought up to the times so we can feed our families and afford to live.
Many workers in San Diego are joining the national fight to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. It's a battle that started back in 2012 when fast food workers across the nation walked off the job, demanding more pay and the right to form a union.
The cost of food and water and all that, that's something you can control. The cost of how much your labor is and how much your rent is, those are things that are very hard to control. And that's why we're trying to get attention on the subject.
Some economists say raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour is a bad idea. Paying employees more, they say, could end up costing jobs and business.
It reduces the profits for the companies, and then they find other ways to operate or they close down.
Earlier this year, California passed a bill to gradually boost the state's minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2022. It's a plan that passed both the Assembly and Senate.
I just hope that people will come to their senses, and instead of helping the poor in this way, it's true that you can't really live well with a salary of $10 an hour, but there are other ways to help.
Carlos Correa, CW6 News.
More than 60 rallies in major cities reportedly got out of hand, but events here have been mostly peaceful, and so far no arrests have been reported.
If we don't get it, shut it down.
Hundreds of upset San Diegans took to the streets in protest. What's unusual, they were from different groups protesting different agendas, but they marched united and chanted as one. 10 News reporter Emily Thode has been with the protesters all night long and is live downtown to explain how it came about. Emily.
So the protest ended here at this McDonald's. It's right next to City College. One of the issues, they are demanding a $15 an hour minimum wage increase, but that's just the start of it.
We are the workers! We are the workers!
Hundreds of people from all walks of life held signs and chanted as they meandered through downtown San Diego.
The mighty, mighty workers! The mighty, mighty workers!
Actually, they chanted a lot of different things. Because there were several different groups with different issues, such as increasing the minimum wage to $15.
If we don't get it, shut it down.
Immigrant rights, racial justice, stopping the North Dakota pipeline.
So us coming together is saying, look, we are the people. There is one race, the human race, and we are all impacted by these issues.
Teresa Johnson is one of the protesters who took part in this die-in in the middle of a downtown San Diego street, representing Black and Latinos killed by law enforcement. Johnson happily lending her voice to the other causes as well.
We're actually all more alike than we actually are different. And society has tried to divide us through racial division when we are all dealing with the same oppression and the same struggle, but just in different colors and in different aspects.
We want
So from what I saw the protesters, it was extremely peaceful. There were children, the elderly all walking together. I did put in a call to police to find out if there were any arrests. So far, I have not heard back. I'm live in downtown San Diego. Emily Thode.
Happening now, a fight for 15 protest. Fast food, airport, home care, child care, and higher education workers, along with Uber drivers, are all marching through the streets of downtown San Diego. Sky Fox was over the scene of the march this evening. Elected officials are also joining in the National Day of Disruption. The march started at the federal building a little more than an hour ago. It is the third and final demonstration in San Diego today. And marches were also held nationwide across the country in more than 300 cities. It is the latest push in the fight to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Here in California, Governor Jerry Brown recently signed legislation that will raise the mandatory minimum wage to $15 an hour, but not until 2022. And workers say the wait is simply too long.
Right now, hundreds of people are rallying in downtown San Diego in a mass demonstration calling for social justice.
The rally in March in San Diego is part of what's being called the National Day of Action. Sasha Fu has the story tonight. Sasha?
Alan and Sandra, some of these activist groups are taking to the streets at this hour, and they have a broad list of concerns, including a call for racial justice, immigrant rights, and criminal justice reform. The protest in San Diego mirrors dozens of others in cities around the nation, with a demand for economic justice as well, and raising the pay of those at the low end of the economic ladder. With airline passengers looking on, these chanting union members and their supporters staged a rally at Lindbergh Field, demanding a hike in pay for airport janitors.
And it's hard. It's hard to come in and do what needs to be done when we're not appreciated.
This noontime rally was part of what organizers have dubbed a National Day of Action. Janitor Elton Pendleton makes $12.06 an hour right now, which translates to about $1,200 a month. He says raising his pay to $15 an hour will make a big difference for him and his family.
Basically, what we're doing is just surviving. You know, we'd like to know more than that. It's deplorable that we have to be in poverty. It's deplorable.
The union representing the 260 custodial and security employees at the airport are getting ready for contract talks later this month. Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez supports the demand for a pay hike.
You deserve to be able to pay for housing in this community.
Gonzalez says this is an issue about fairness for people who work hard to provide for their families.
They're our neighbors. They go to school with our kids. Their kids go to school with our kids. And we just need to take care of each other. And this is when people are willing to work hard, 30, 40, 50 hours a week, they should be paid a living wage.
Paul Harriot has been working at the airport for almost 40 years.
I'm on $15 an hour right now.
Like many of the other airport janitors, he must work at a second job. For Paul, that's an additional 24 hours a week.
And have a second job at the convention center.
With her children at her side, Patricia Velasquez is also part of this day of protest.
To pay the rent or buy food for our kids is hard. It's not enough money to us.
Her daughter Priscilla says she has seen how hard her mother has worked in mopping and scrubbing restrooms over the last 19 years.
Has done as much as she can to support my family. She does a lot for us, and whenever I hear hateful things about all of this, it just makes me really sad because I know she's trying really hard. And she's doing the best that she can to provide for everyone.
California lawmakers have agreed to raise wages to $15 an hour, but that is still 5 years away in the year 2022.
And we know in communities like San Diego, these hardworking janitors have to make more money or they can't even afford to live here.
Allies in the so-called Fight for 15 include some San Diego clergy members. The Reverend Beth Johnson says she hopes the message is heard.
The ears that are deaf are the ears who are not affected. The kinds of hate, the kinds of deprivation that workers and families are experiencing. The only people who can't hear are the people to whom it doesn't matter.
A conservative think tank called Employment Policies Institute is staunchly opposed to a proposed raise in hourly pay. The institute says increasing the minimum wage will produce a host of negative effects, including lost jobs, reduced hours, and the closing of some businesses.
The fight to raise the minimum thing much larger.
Several groups have banded together, and they're now marching through the streets. 10 News reporter Rachel Bianco is live near City College, where those protesters have just arrived. Rachel.
Hi, Tika and Steve. We have several hundred people now gathered in the middle of Park Boulevard at A. They are blocking traffic. This is part of the National Day of Disruption, and this is definitely become disruptive. They are fighting for $15 an hour, minimum wage, a variety of issues here. And we're going to talk to, we've got 4 people who are sitting on the ground holding hands. They're blocking traffic, and they are willing to get arrested. We're going to talk to one of them. You told me you're going to get arrested. Why are you willing to do that?
I'm willing to do that in order to support the workers because this is a cause whose time has come.
What are you hoping to accomplish by this day of protesting all across San Diego?
Well, it's all across the country. And so what we're really recognizing is that the workers are united, and the workers together will continue to fight for what is fair and what is just for them in their workplace and for their families. I'm willing to do this for the families of workers in San Diego.
What about those who say, some of the small businesses cannot afford to pay their workers $15 an hour?
This is what we know. We know that when workers are paid a decent wage, they're able to take care of their families, they will put that money back into the community. So what businesses will thrive when workers can participate in the local economy.
So what's going to happen here in the next few minutes?
You know, we're going to see what happens in the next few minutes.
All right. Thank you for talking to us. So again, they are planning to continue staging this protest in the middle of the street. They say they're willing to get arrested for their cause. The police are aware of this. These are planned arrests. They have information on each one of these protesters. We will be out here all night long. We have multiple crews, and we'll bring you the latest tonight on 10 News at 11. Reporting live downtown, Rachel Bianco, 10 News.
Rachel, thank you. Earlier, the day of disruption, protesters stormed into a terminal at Lindbergh Field.
You cannot enter the terminal. Please step out. You cannot enter the terminal. Please step out.
Hundreds of people marched through the baggage area of Terminal 1 for just a few minutes. Other than that, those protesters to the airport, they were relatively peaceful, with roughly 200 people gathered just on the sidewalk, chanting and holding signs. Several cities, as Rachel mentioned, across the U.S. have voted to raise the minimum wage. Right now, it's $10.50 an hour in San Diego and will increase to $11.50 on January the 1st. Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle have also passed ordinances that gradually increase the minimum wage to $15. By comparison, the federal minimum wage in the U.S. is just $7.25 an hour.
But the streets of downtown San Diego are clear tonight after a large protest blocked roads and intersections.
The so-called Fight for 15 minimum wage demonstration got a lot of momentum, joining forces with several other causes on what was called a day of disruption. NBC 7's Candace Wynn is downtown for us tonight. Candace.
And Mark and Catherine, the demonstrators went beyond their name tonight, but beyond the Fight for 15, since that's already been approved here in California, widening their scope, they say, especially post-election.
Justice for all! Justice for all!
A workers' rights demonstration put on by local unions and Fight for 15 organizers joins the nationwide movement on the streets of San Diego, where some protesters orchestrated a die-in lying in the middle of the road in downtown. Although California approved a $15 an hour minimum wage,
we don't, because $15 an hour won't be until 2022. And right now it's $10.50 an hour. Right? That's poverty wages.
Hundreds of others joined Mickey Kasparian, the president of the San Diego Imperial County's Labor Council.
Based on what happened in our recent election, a lot of people make a lot of promises.
As the group moved, it joined forces with other movements, those calling for justice for the environment, immigrant rights, housing, and Alfred Alongo, a black man killed by a police officer in El Cajon in September.
Another unborn black man was shot.
This is really about justice.
The group gathered and dispersed peacefully with no arrest or violence, but voices heard.
Now, California has been one of the leading states in this Fight for 15 movement. Local protesters were planning to get arrested to add publicity to their cause tonight, but last minute decided against it. Reporting live from downtown, Candace Wen, NBC 7.
Candace, thanks. Earlier today, there were other protests of minimum wage. Many workers and their supporters demonstrated here at a McDonald's in Barrio Logan, and then later at Lindbergh Field, that to push for the $15 minimum wage. 20 other cities across the nation also took part in protests today.
Demonstrations continued in downtown San Diego into this evening.
Yeah, they are calling it Justice Can't Wait. About 150 people are protesting near Market Street and Broadway. The causes of the groups protesting range from racial justice to those trying to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline. One of the protesters says everything is connected.
We know everything is connected and everything is at stake. And so this is a momentous time, I believe, for us, because community organizations and workers have all come together to help recognize and lift up the unity among us, and that justice for us is justice for all.
So far tonight, things are peaceful. San Diego police say there have been no arrests.